All right, welcome back to quiltingcowboy.com, and I wanted to do a quick tutorial on pressing, right? Really important, and there's a couple of things that I've learned through my 20 years of doing this that will really help your process. So hopefully this will just be a quick little tutorial, and then we'll be able to go on to other things. Next week I'm going to do probably something like pinning or whatever. Anyhow, I love to talk, I guess. Shut up, get to the point. Okay, yeah, so I'm working on this one here behind me, which I love. Pattern will be available, ooh gosh, sometime, probably September. But I love it, love it. And I wanted to kind of talk about some of the ways in which pressing can really make or break your work, okay? So let's look at that. So, pressing. Not ironing, pressing, right? Because this refers to how we actually, open up the fabric once it's sewn together, as opposed to ironing, which we would do with just, a big piece. So, in terms of tools, I actually normally have 2 irons going at any given point, right? I have just my regular iron, right? But then I also have this little iron. This little guy changed my life, all right? Why? Because you can see here it has like a super sharp little edge on it, right? So as you're hitting it up against the next fabric, it really gets into where you've sewn and opens it up more thoroughly, right? Whereas if you just use like this big guy, right, it's kind of not going to get the same effect. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to that close up. All right, so I'm working on this piece here for that quilt that I just showed you, right? And I really want to get in there and open this up. So what you want to do is see how when you hit up against, shaking the whole board, hold on Dale. Okay, so you see how it presses it open that way, and when you push against that, it actually moves the fabric over in a much more successful manner because of this super sharp edge, not to mention that you can travel with this little guy. So I love it. It's by Clover, and it's still available, I believe, on their website. But I love this iron because, again, of this sharp edge that just pushes the fabric open, kind of opening up that seam and making sure that you're getting the best possible kind of opening of the 2 fabrics right along this seam, right? Because if you don't do that, and I see that a lot with, hold on one second. There you are. I see that a lot with beginning students, that they don't really understand how important that is. And so what happens is they get this like kind of almost overlap between the 2 fabrics, and it's not fully open, right? And it has to be, because that repeated over and over and over again throughout the entire process of a quilt is really going to be a problem for you, right? So you want to make sure that it's as open as possible, and more importantly, that it's as open throughout the work, right, continuously, and so you don't have a repeated mistake 100 times over, thus leaving you with, a baggy, kind of gross, kind of, messy quilt top, right? That's not what we want. So once I go through and hit it with this little sharp edge, right, moving those 2 fabrics as open as possible, then I'll go through, and if I am traveling or working with this little guy, especially on my little lap quilt, you got one of those like lap ironing boards? I love that. Where is it? Hold on a second. This is how nerdy I am. All right, so I have this guy. Look how filthy it is. Disgusting, sorry. But I'll actually sit there, and so if you're doing like half square triangles for days, like sometimes you're doing, anyways, I don't have it up. But sometimes it's just like, oh, really? 1,000 half square triangles, and you're like opening them one after another, right? To just sit in front of the TV and do that is sometimes fun if you're a quilty nerd. But anyhow, I digress. So yeah, once you get this fully open, The next thing I would do, if you want, you don't have to, but I find that just a little bit of sizing or something along those lines, even just a little bit of water or really lightly with the regular iron to steam it kind of in place, because that really allows that to settle, right? A little bit of moisture along with the heat really kind of seals that in. So that is my tip for pressing. Wow, this camera is really sideways. Sorry about that. Hold on, here we go. Is that better? But yeah, that's what I normally do in terms of getting those seams perfect, right? Because again, you don't ever want to iron from the backside. Well, there's one or two things, but only when it's called for. Like when I showed my and I'm going to redo this one, the circle, inserting like a circle, right? Actually piecing a circle into the work. On a rare occasion, I'll kind of just hit it from the back very carefully to make sure that the seams are going the right way. Or if you're actually doing a quilt back, right? Because I like to get those seams open, right? Rather than both to one side, so that the back of the quilt is laying as flat as possible and you don't have a little ridge in it. All right, so those are my tips on pressing. I hope that this was helpful. Again, I strongly encourage you to get a proper iron for this type of work, and don't just rely on a big thing like this, because it just doesn't have the same edge, right? And your work will not be as precise as it could be as if you're using a little guy like this to at least get those seams open. And then once you have them, you know, as open as possible, then you can go back through and hit it with some steam with a bigger iron. But that's my tip for you. I hope that that was helpful. As always, you know where to reach me, quiltingcowboy.com or quiltingcowboy@gmail.com. You can email me, and I'll talk to you soon. Yay!